Over to you.
A very good afternoon to one and all. This is the webinar series we are doing for the last 3 months, and we are continuing this webinar series to create the awareness about our program, which is GCPPCS. GCPPCS, it is based on certifications, and we are segregated into 3 sections. First is like professional certification, like one can go for GCP certification. If they are from clinical research background, they are into medical writing, they are into pharmacovigilance, they are handling trials, they're into like various sector of clinical trial industries. And another one is we are in search of PRCBs, which are 17024 certified already, and we are looking for TIs also, training institutions. These are the main 3 sections which we are based on. And for today's webinar, we have various speakers from different backgrounds. I'll be welcoming Dr. Y.K. Gupta for the welcome address. He's the principal advisor. He's the principal advisor, and he was the former Dean AIMS. And currently, he's the principal advisor in AIMS Jammu.
And I lovingly call him Bhishma Pitama. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar to everybody. And it's my pleasure to address the nearly or more than 80 participants who are the principal investigators, and some of the participants represent training institutions in the country. And also, I have been told that some institutions and principal investigators are also from outside India. So welcome you all to this very important program. And I also congratulate Dr. Suchita and the entire team, Dr. Vandana, Mr. Jitendra, and many others who have been working hard on making this very important, unique program in the globe a successful venture. I would just say, what is GCPPCS? You know that all of you know, and which I can vouch from your interest of attending this, the clinical trial has become a much needed ever before, because post-COVID, the clinical trial have become very important aspect of new drug development, repurposing drugs, or developing new regime, or also evaluating the existing regime versus the altered regime. Now, when you do clinical research or clinical trial, there are few very important aspects in that. Number one, why you are doing the research, what should be the protocol, what is the ethics, who are the members of ethics, what should be the role of ethics committee, and what happens if the ethics is not followed. Then the second thing is the regulations, which we cover under NDCT 2019, which means, in a nutshell, I always say that if you are driving a car in India, you have to know the driving rules in India. It may not be same that you have in US or you have in European countries. It may be different. The speed limit may be different, the side of driving seat may be different, and so on and so forth. Therefore, knowing the clinical trial rules of in India is very important, or not important, is essential before you venture, or any person venture into clinical trials or clinical research. The third thing is the critical regulations which only exist in India may not be existing at other places. Fourthly, because most of the data which you generate in India will also be used for global purpose, for a global application. And therefore, understanding the OECD principles, understanding the principles of harmonized GCP is also important. And it is also important that you should know the differences where still are there for global regulatory process. The first thing, the first certificate which anybody signs in clinical trial is that this study is done under GCP. That is a certificate you sign. Maybe many times you sign this certificate without understanding what you're signing. but it is mandatory now that you have a GCP training. You have gone under GCP training. Now, what happened when this rule regulations came into being and also accreditation process have started? There are a large number of training institutions mushroomed. Those who got a training for one day, they also started training in schools. There are lots of online training schools and training centers which conduct training from 1 hour duration to half day duration to 1 or 7 days duration to 3 months duration and maybe 1 year duration. Now, each person gives certificate. Now, when you take the certificate from this, who will value this certificate unless nobody should value this certificate or such certificate unless they have a confidence in it? Because you may get away with 1 or 2 places, but when you are looked at that whether this certificate, when you are given a certificate, that means that it indicates, it certifies your competence and knowledge. Sometimes these certificates do not reflect that. And therefore, the process of certification of this certificate, a certification by global standard by an organization is important. Now, therefore, the Department of Science and Department of Biotechnology, THSTI CDSA, has started this unique program of GCP, Good Clinical Practice, PCS, Professional Certification Scheme. What does it mean? It means that if I have got a certificate from XYZ Training Center, I will be assessed by GCPPCS program. The training organization, training institution will also be assessed by this, and they will be given certification that yes, this organization may be X training institute, B, Y training institute, which conducts training, is also assessed for minimum competency and minimum syllabus and accuracy of the teaching and all those things, which are very objectively. And therefore, if you are representing any organization which is involved in training, maybe college, maybe laboratory, or maybe NGO, or maybe any organization, you will get a GCP PCS certification, which is an ISO certification, which is global standard. The value of this certified organization will be 100 folds more. The person who gets certification from such organization will indirectly or directly have a certification that yes, you have been assessed by, you have been given a certificate by an organization which is assessed by GCP PCS. And therefore, the person or the organization or the institution which is training, which is important training in good clinical practice is something very important. And the criteria which have been made are very elaborate, very critical, and they are assessed very objectively. The purpose of this program is to create a capacity in the country of the best practices in GCP and the human resource which is best in the world, globally acceptable, and increase the value of to create a competent resources of ethics committee, investigators, and so on and so forth. So I really appreciate the effort which has gone, and I really wish all the participants a great success. And I am sure that you will make this program a very useful, very successful. So welcome again. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Suchita.
Hello.
Suchita, over to you.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, audible now, audible now, audible
Thank
now.
you. Thank you so much, sir.
Uh,
Thank you so much, sir, for saying those very important and wise words. Over
yes.
our tenure, we have always witnessed that people who are trained in 2 days or 2 months or 2 hours, we are not able to differentiate. And I think this one, where you head it as a chairperson of the technical committee and have designed the minimum standard of competence, will play a greater role in days to come in making uniform GCP trained personnel, not only in India, but globally, sir. So there will be a lot of questions. I know that you are in ministry and it is difficult for you to get time, but around 3:45 or so, if it is possible, sir, if you can come down, because there are a lot of people who would like to ask questions, and hearing from horse's mouth from you will be good, because you have been chairing the NDCT rules. As a chairperson of the NDCT rules, there might be a lot of questions related to that. So if it is possible, sir, Sonia will be in touch with you, so will I. And if you can join around 3:45, sir.
Sure, I will do that.
Thank you so much, sir. See you again, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. And just 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Like there's a panic going on that some of them are not able to join through Zoom. So don't worry. We will be monitoring from YouTube also. Don't worry at all. And I've shared the YouTube link again on the email itself. Please join through the YouTube live. You will be monitored there and you will be given the certificate. So don't worry, don't panic at all. And one more thing is there, people are sending questions also. We'll be having a Q&A at 3:30, but you can send your questions in between. I'm maintaining a database here. Okay. Over to ma'am, over to Suchita ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Am I audible again?
Yeah, ma'am, audible.
Yeah. So
Like
will
in a
you
good
please,
capacity. Yeah.
will you please allow Dr. Seema to join? I think the ones.
Ma'am, I'm already in conversation with Sapna.
Okay.
I'm given her number and I'm doing it at the back end. Don't worry, don't worry. You start your session, you don't worry. I'm keeping it at the back end.
Okay, thank you so much. Namaskar. Good afternoon once again to one and all. I'll just quickly take you through GCPPCS, like what it is for the people who are first time attending. For them, it might be, something to know. For the people who have already attended, they might, for them, it might be a refresher course. THSTI, that is our parent organization, Translation Health Science and Technology Institute, is now a BRIC organization, Biotechnology Research and Innovation Council. And that's why you can see a BRIC logo here. And thank you so much for attending the session today. It means a lot for us. We have put in a lot of efforts over the years to come to this stage. And your contribution and your, participation, I think, will make this work. And every time you have been doing things which are made by other country, GCPPCS is born out of pure passion, and it is by India, for India, and for the world. So I would request all of you to understand it and contribute to make it better in days to come. So what is this GCP? Just now, as rightly said by Professor Y.K. Gupta ji, is the GCP is a requirement. It is an international quality ethical standard which we need to follow. If you see the NDCT rules, it mentions that the GCP of CDSU, that is 2001, is the one which we are supposed to learn and have certificate. But when we do assessments, we find NABH assessment as well as WHO certificate for CAP assessments, we find that people use certificates which are not GCP of CDSU, they use it for ICHR2. They can be trained in ICHR2, there is no doubt about it. But what about this GCP 2001, which is formulated by the Drugs Technical Advisory Board of CDSU? So you must be trained. So is GCP compliance necessary? Yes, because NDCT rules, if you can see the page number, it mentions that you might be disqualified if you have not been trained in GCP as an ethics committee member. And it is also benchmarking for the people who are already involved in clinical trials or research in any capacity, because investigator being trained, clinical trial members being trained will play a huge role in days to come. So this compliance is necessary. We have developed a minimum standard of competence, because this is the first in globe to do that. And this minimum standard of competence is developed through public consultation and a lot of meetings and deliberations. And it was put to public forum for a month to gather inputs, and it was formulated. We are on a version, and we are always open to change in version. And with your inputs, we will continually improve. So it is, the GCP has all these requirements, which is mentioned in this slide. The genesis is that CDSA used to conduct GCP training since more than 12 years that I know. And we realized that GCP is something, what exactly Professor Y.K. Gupta ji said is that so few people are self-trained, few people are professionally trained, and it was very difficult for us to distinguish between that. So we felt that there should be a system which is built on processes, and ISO 17024 came to us when we met Shri Jory ji, who was that time the CEO of NABCB, National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies by Quality Council of India. And that was the birth of GCPPCS, and we had that time Professor Gagandeep Khan, very supportive of this, and our secretary, Dr. Renu Swaroop ji, who were very supportive for the launch to make this possible. And you can see the photographs of the GCPPCS launch on 15th August. It was dedicated to the nation in 2021. And because we have completed such training for more than, maybe that was 12,000, now it might be 15,000 plus, we feel that we had a nerves of, we could feel the nerves of what exactly the training content and material should ideally be, although it is always subjected to continual improvement. Now, GCPPCS is a perfect example of a voluntary scheme. Just like you have the voluntary schemes like traditional healers, yoga certification, certifications. So this is similar to that of a voluntary space. It's not which one, by the regulatory, the ones which you see in the slide. We did a lot of SWOT analysis to find out that why it should be done and how it should be done. And these are a picture which depicts that what was done as a homework before we embarked upon this journey on GCPPCS. As I mentioned earlier, it's the first of its kind to us. As far as we know, that is first in the world. Based on this 17024 2012 standard, the standard is also undergoing a migration, or maybe it will get updated in days to come. And we will speak about the two parts of this in my next slide. We had been fortunate enough to meet our present Drugs Controller General of India to updated him about this requirement, and was supportive enough to help us understand that this GCPPCS, what it is. And I'm sure we are looking forward for support from the regulatory as well as all the research bodies. GCPPCS is based on competency, and competency is based on knowledge, skill, and attitude. And this GCPPCS certification has systems which you will note in today's program. If you can see this flowchart, you will find that THSTI, from where we all belong, we are the scheme owner, and this is divided into two parts, where you will see PRCB, which is a personal certification bodies, which is NECU as present, which is Northeastern Christian University, who is our present personal certification bodies. If you feel that you are trained in GCP and you do not require any kind of training, you can directly write to NECU. You can mark as a CC, but you may not also mark as a CC, and go to NECU seeking competency assessment. And if you are, you can take the competency assessment, and then you can be certified as GCPPCS certified. If you feel that you are trained, but you still feel that you would require some kind of refresher training or something, then you can go to training institutions. At present, we have a tie-up with National Institute of Health and Family Welfare, few days to come, NIHFW will try to roll out those GCP training programs where you can directly contact them, but it is not restricted to only NIHFW. You can train yourself, you can train from any other organizations, but these are the training institutions and PRCBs which are approved by CDSA. And as you know, that this is all based on an international standard called ISO 17024. And because NABCB, National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies, Quality Council of India, which today Jory ji is going to address, and he was the former CEO of that, is a part of the IAF, International Accreditation Forum. We have an international equivalence because of that, because NABCB is a signatory to International Accreditation Forum. And that means the GCPPCS you are certified here is internationally equivalent, all thanks to NABCB. This international equivalence means that if you are trained here, you are GCPPCS certified in Canada, Japan, any other country because of its international equivalence. And that's why ICH E6R2 is also incorporated in that. We all know that ICH E6R3 is upcoming, and once it is rolled out, we will also upgrade the things for an international equivalence, seeking international equivalence. Now, this GCPPCS is not simply home-cooked food. It has undergone a severe and a stringent type of mechanisms with various levels of different various committees. We have a multi-stakeholder steering committee at the apex level, which is headed by Shri Anil Chaudhary ji, who is there with us. Technical committee, which is headed by chairperson is Professor Y.K. Gupta ji, and assessment committee, which is headed by Krishnamurthy ji. And we have a review and decision panel, and we also have an appellate authority. This apex panel has representatives from various ministries for the formulation of this GCPPCS. So if you can visit the website, you can ask questions, you can always email to us, and there are various forms available. And if you have any questions you feel that you would like to ask, you can always ask today, or you can always email. NECU, who is our Northeast Christian Universities, our PRCB, and this is their website. You can go and ask them if you are interested to pursue this. I would request you to be, the first movers, because they usually get advantage of being the first one. This is a recently where we had a MOU with National Institute of Health and Family Welfare, and they probably are our first training institutions, which is CDSE approved. We have close to 1,000 people who have attended our webinar series, and if you or your colleague have missed this webinar series, do not worry. We can meet you in the month of March, where we will again hold it, and we will put these details in the website, as well as we will send invitation letters. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing, and if you have any questions, we will address during the question answer session. Thank you so much. Namaskar and Jai.
Thank you so much, ma'am, right before the time. And it was a really informative session. And so many informations were there around about the PRCB and TIs also. Now I invite Dr. Seema Pai, who is the Director in Clinical Site Management from Pfizer. She'll be taking the lecture on minimum standard of competence. She's there.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Seema. Hello, Dr. Seema. Are you,
Yeah.
we can hear you properly. Are you comfortable with the setup?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the setup.
We are 5 minutes early, so I think there's no problem. We can start early.
Okay. So I can start, right?
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Do
Thank
let
you,
me
thank
know
you.
if you can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can see your presentation. Yeah,
Okay.
it is very much visible, and we can hear you also in a good capacity.
Good.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can start.
Thank
We
you.
can start with your session.
Sure. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dr. Sonia. Thank you, Dr. Sucheta, for having me here. So we are all here to first of all, I think, look at the good clinical practice professional certification scheme in a much more deeper manner. We already heard Dr. Sucheta, and we also have Dr. YK Gupta here, which is a very big matter of pride for us that we have, as India, been able to come up with a minimal standard of competence related part for making sure that we are all GCP trained very well. And the interest and the awareness gathering, which we are trying to do today as a part of this, is something which I will take forward with explaining to you what is the minimal standard of competence that one would be looking for while we are devising this scheme. Now, going into a little bit of further background, as Dr. Suchita has already highlighted, this whole program was developed by the CDSA and begun by the CDSA, and then later on taken up now by the THSTI. And over the years, the initial version was prepared by the technical committee in September of 2020. And thereon, it has undergone several iterations, and the current version is 1.1, which was released in October of 2021. Now, coming to really why do we require GCP, or the overall introduction and the scope of what we are trying to do here. So we all know that good clinical practice is a national or an international standard for any biomedical study, irrespective of whether a sponsor is conducting it or whether you are conducting it in an academic institution. this forms the core or the tenet of how we conduct clinical trials across different geographies. And overall, GCP is required from a design, conduct, how do we really perform a clinical trial, monitor the clinical trial, audit the clinical trial, and also how we record these clinical trials, analyze and report. So, overall in the world, this particular standard was already existing way back in 1997, and thereon, India started to slowly adopt GCP. And somewhere in around in and around 2004-5, the DTAB under the DNC Act endorsed the adoption of the GCP guidelines for streamlining the clinical studies in India. Although GCP was existing and we were conducting studies from 97-98 as part of the ICH and global clinical trials were being conducted, DTAB decided to adopt these guidelines. Now, having said that, the adoption by the ISO through ISO 14155 was also there. And as a overall perspective, what I would like to say here is that although we have these guidelines, there is no India specific guidance as to how this adoption really is required to be done. And we have several professionals who are there in the country who are practicing clinical research. However, there is no common standard even in the world, let alone in India, which says what is the common minimum standard that all of us need to have to become a trained or a certified professional. So, lack of this standard is what really led to the whole country really wanting to prepare such a program, and within the program, look at what is the competence. Now, let's say the minimal competence is what really would guide us to become a good clinical researcher, and that's what we are trying to seek here. So, having said that, I will move on to some more insights. So, as a clinical research workforce, and what we see within the industry or what we see within academia, every year we have a gap in terms of what are the capabilities which are to be sought of when it comes to newly qualified professionals who are joining the force or people who are very experienced. How do they keep up with the current knowledge, and how do they keep up with what is happening with the iterations of GCP? You already heard Dr. Sucheta mention about the ICH E6R3 guidance, which is again undergoing revisions. And given that there are so many revisions happening within GCP, even those who are already trained require to keep up with their knowledge. They require to keep up with the guidelines which are coming up. And the newly qualified professionals, let's say, who are medically qualified or there are nursing staff, none of this is included in our day-to-day curricula where we do the basic training for medicine, or when we do the basic training for nursing, or we do it for pharmacy. There is no structured curriculum which is available for clinical research. So, how does one then look at professionally developing these skills and competence in order to be very competent in the workforce? And how does one keep up? Because if we do not continually educate ourselves like in any other field, this will be dated knowledge and it will not be applicable for various activities that we conduct, and it will not be per the regulatory norms. Hence, competence is a very important aspect that we would like to measure when we are doing this type of training, and that's what this whole course is designed towards. So, when it comes to the competence, we would judge that by looking at the skills, the knowledge, the application. And when we are judging any of these three parameters like the skills, knowledge, and application, this particular course is definitely designed to make sure that all the three are checked in great details, and that we will come to that in a little bit. And one would say that competence in clinical research is something which will be on the job. Yes, it is on the job, but then there is a certain level of preparation that can be pre-done by these type of courses, which will be able to help the incumbent to make sure that the competencies can be available with them right at the time when they enter the workforce, or they can be contemporaneous, like I mentioned earlier. And they can certainly be observed by us while we are designing, let's say, for example, a protocol, and they can be measured in order for us to see as to how we are executing those items, and they can be assessed by formal set of questions, and there could be tests which could be held at the end in order to make sure that these observable competencies are carried forward by the incumbent. As such, there are no general core competencies which are available at this moment in time through educational programs or training programs or any of these programs which are there for GCP across the world. There is no standardization as such, neither for the entry level, neither for the ones who are continuing their professional development. And hence, this type of a course will be very useful for assessing and basing it at or baselining it for everyone at once. Now, one could say that depending upon the scheme which has been devised here, how would we grade different types of professionals? That too is available within the auspices of the GCP professional certified scheme here, where the scheme is designed to evaluate, and it is a self-learning course where there is a certified self-directed practice-based learning rather than a supervised training, so that the people can go through the whole of the course by themselves at their pace and at their time, depending upon where they are standing as of on date. It is also envisaged to promote and maintain the development of the competencies. Example, which is for professionalism, for the knowledge which one would gain, the skill levels of the person which can be honed as a part of the scheme, and also the various attributes of individual professional can be developed in as part of the scheme. It also encourages the applicants who are there for the scheme to plan, record, and to reflect on their professional development and the requirements needs through the assessment, which is a self-assessment against the competence standards. Now, the scheme owners developed the MSc for GCP, and there are two types of the levels which are there within the scheme. One, which is the basic level, like I said, for entry level professionals or for people who are doing a basic level activity within the clinical research framework. And then there would be an advanced level in the future, which would be developed in order for people who are at the SME level or a subject matter expertise level or a domain specialist within the whole schema of things. So, what are these core competencies that have been developed by the technical committee and the domains which will be there? So, as for any other GCP course, there are six domains that the technical committee thought would be very useful for assessment. The first part would be the protocol and the development of the protocol. The second part would be talking about the investigational product development and what are the regulations surrounding it. The third part was to cover the ethical considerations for the patient safety and well-being. And some of the things, while we look at academic clinical trials which are there, are things like the clinical study operations related aspects while we are doing and conducting a clinical trial at a hospital site. And the site and the study management aspects of a clinical trial cannot be ignored, which is the fifth module. And last but not the least, the most important soul of the whole thing would be the data management and the informatics related pieces, because that is what really testifies how the clinical trial was done and what is the data that is getting generated out of a clinical trial. And we will do a little bit of sneak peek on all these six domains. And why these six domains were chosen is because it was thought that this would well encompass all the aspects as a part of the framework for a basic GCP training. So the first part, which is that of the protocol, this is something which will be used to look at the knowledge of the scientific concepts in terms of the design related aspects of clinical research. And over here, things like what is the need for doing this protocol in terms of the purpose? What is the rationale? What are the objectives? Which are the primary? Which are the secondary objectives? What is the type of design that we are using to conduct this study? Like, is it an adaptive design? Is it a design which is talking just about a comparator arm, etc., will be looked upon. Similarly, one would talk about the endpoints, the expected outcomes, and most importantly, it has to address a clinically important question. The key elements like the statistics, the epidemiology, and the operational aspects are explained via the medium of the protocol, and one would be expecting the incumbent to certainly know about at least some part of the pathophysiology, the pharmacology, and toxicology for a given molecule, or for the purposes of the disease knowledge which is required before we actually dive into preparation of a protocol. So all these co-ancillary aspects which are there, the incumbent would require to have at least some knowledge of the same. So 5.2 then looks at the investigational product development and the regulations. Now this encompasses the knowledge on how the drugs or the device or the biologics are developed and how they are regulated. For this, the incumbent really would require to know the various responsibilities across the domain of the investigational product development process. Now, that would also include the GMP related aspects, and the idea that what would it include throughout the life cycle of the given study or the protocol, and the local regulatory requirements within the country, and what are the norms and the permissions which are required for importation of a given drug, what are the licensing conditions which are required, are very important for the incumbent to be aware of while looking at the investigational product development and the regulations which surround it. There are specific processes and the phases which are required for seeking any kind of market authorization of a product. And this is something which is the knowledge which the incumbent needs to be gaining as part of the competency domain. And while we are talking of any kind of investigational product, safety reporting cannot be ignored. That will be, again, the most important tenet against which the regulator or the incumbent should be knowing this, that safety needs to be reported in the interest of the patient as well as in the interest of the academic research or the industry sponsored research which is being done, because this is a domain where there will be a lot of eyeballs which will be there, given the importance of the same while we are designing a protocol. Now, coming to the other aspect, it would be the 5.3 section, which is talking about the ethical considerations for the patient safety and well-being. And this again talks in detail about the historical events that led to the development of the ethical guidelines and the regulatory process. We are all aware that there have been tragedies which have led to the development of the ethical framework in the whole world when it comes to the ethical guidelines and clinical research being seen as much required. And all this is guided by the requirement of the human participant protection related national and international guidelines which are available. This domain or this section also defines the concept of the clinical equipoise and the therapeutic misconceptions which are there, which are related to the conduct of a study. Several other aspects such as the suitability of the sample size, the inclusion and the exclusion criteria and the other scientific criteria, whether they are safeguarding the protection of human participants, the description of the ethical issues, especially in relation to the vulnerable population, where in India we know that we require the audiovisual consenting, which is an important aspect, which may not be the case with other countries. All this would be described, and also there would be the whole topic around the informed consent process, the fact that it is required in the form of making sure that the patient's lay terminology is used in the informed consent document. It is explained properly in the language which the patient understands. There are proper assents and consents when it comes to the pediatric population, which is being exposed to a clinical trial. And finally, last but not the least, our country has the unique proposition of making sure that reimbursement for the participation in the clinical trial in the form of compensation, medical management is also well taken care of. So these elements are covered in the 5.3 section. The other aspect here for 5.4 would be the clinical study operations related aspect, which is again a very important domain, which talks about not just the industry sponsored studies as one would think, where there would be compliance, which is an important tenet maintained by the sponsor in the form of sending a monitor, making sure the operational aspects of study conduct are well taken care of and looked into. Here it also talks about how in an academic institution, when an academician assumes the role of a sponsor and an investigator, what should be the ideal responsibilities which are sitting with the clinical investigation team as a sponsor, as an investigator, and also covers the aspects of safety management. How should the person be handling it? How should the safety management be handled in a clinical trial? The clinical study operations section also talks about the design, conduct, and the documentation of the clinical trials when it comes to practice, and also understanding the AE, the SAE, the causality assessment, the reporting, the management of compensation, as I described earlier, given that it's unique to our country, appropriate handling of the IP, and making sure that there is enough evidence and documentation which will go towards the good documentation practice when it comes to an audit and an inspection. And finally, understanding what are the responsibilities from a post marketing activity perspective. So that once marketing of the product is done, what are the responsibilities to be covered? Now we also look at 5.5 then, which talks about the study and the site management related aspects, which encompass very important things such as the human resource, the infrastructure, the finances. When we talk about human resource, it's more about whether any clinical study site, when it comes to the conduct of clinical research, they have the necessary infrastructure which will help them, and it will help, let's say, the sponsoring party, be it an academic institution or be it industry, whether they would have all the resources which are in place who will be qualified, trained in order for the hospital site to make sure that they are able to deliver the data. So here the process of site selection, the supervision, if there is a key site or if there is a nodal site, how would they be able to supervise the others in the network? Also the planning for the financial management, whether they have earmarks resources in terms of finances, whether they have the time to conduct the study, and the cross-disciplinary personal resources who are there, like whether there is really a phlebotomist who will be there for blood collection only for the clinical trial patients, and whether there is nursing staff enough to devote their time for clinical research. Such concepts are also equally important. We would also look at concepts for the training methodology for the study team at the site, and also manage the risk and make sure that if there are any quality parameters which need to be looked into, the project management at a site is good, and we are in a position to support the site under the tenets of GCP. Also, the legal responsibilities, the issues, and the liabilities which are involved in a study should be known to the incumbent for this particular course, where we would be, sure that the incumbent understands that all this also is covered by penal provisions wherever applicable, when the reportage of all the safety or necessary compliances are not met. So, understanding the procedures, the documents, the oversight management for a given study will be something which these incumbents would require to be knowing and which will be covered as part of the course. The last but not least, like I highlighted, the data management and the informatics part. How is the data really collected? And in the times of digitization, how are they actually acquired? What are the controls around it? How are they managed during the clinical study itself? And how are the data stored later on once the study is over? It also includes concepts about data entry, the queries which can be raised as a part of the data management controls, the quality control, the correction, and the concept of a log database will be also highlighted as part of the course. Now, the heart and soul would be also the understanding of the role of a biostatistician, who will be the key collaborator here when it comes to making sure that the biostatistical plan is in place when it comes to a clinical study, and how is the study overall going to read out based on what is the statistical plan and how is it analyzed. So the typical flow of data throughout the course of the clinical trial and the summarization of the processes when it comes to the EDC capture, the importance of information technology as we look at it as of today. We know that we have a lot of e-tools which have been used at the moment when it comes to the collection, capture, and the management. And finally, the GCP requirements for the data correction and the queries which are there, so that the data quality assurance systems and how SOPs are used within a clinical trial to guide all the processes that we have discussed would be part and parcel of the whole program. So now let's come to the key underpinning pointers here. For any course, and especially this topic of the minimal competence and minimal standards. How are these competence related aspects defined, and how is it that you, as professionals interested in the course, will be judged? It will be obviously by the level of competence when it comes to the performance which is there for a given job. It could be graded as a basic level, or it can be deemed as an advanced level, as we talked of. And if you look at the documents that have been posted in public domain, you would see that for every role, there has been a category which has been described, and one can deem the category to be a basic or advanced one, depending upon whether it is a specialized role or whether it is something which will be a competency which is looked upon as a basic level competency. So if we go into the further deep dive, the evaluation is going to be critical here, and the evaluation will be looked upon by obvious three things like we talked about at the beginning. Each competency which is there is divided into the sub competency, and it is broken down into the knowledge and the skill competency. One could say, let's say about the attitude, beliefs, and the knowledge when we are going to evaluate any of this. It would be the interpretations of the subcompetency that will be helpful for one to judge and evaluate the professionals. So it would be whether the person, for example, if we are talking about the development of a protocol, then whether the person has adequate knowledge of the protocol, and like I discussed earlier, will be having the knowledge in and around the therapeutic area. What really would be included in the inclusion exclusion criteria would be the knowledge element of the whole thing. And when it comes to the applications of the skills, that will be equally important, because the application would talk more about, okay, if there is a protocol, then what are the ancillary related aspects when it comes to implementing the protocol at a ground level within a hospital site. And that would be dependent on the skill of the individual. And this is how the competence domain will be broken down into the knowledge and the skill related part. Another example one could see would be something like IP management. Knowing about the IP and having good knowledge about the IP would be more theoretical in nature, whereas when it comes to the skill, it would be how do you manage the life cycle of the IP right from the start when it is developed to how do you label that, how do you transport the IP, how do you import the IP, and finally how do you destruct the IP at the end of the study, that would be a skill-based domain, because it would not be everything that would be written down. So in this way, the competency would be evaluated from a evaluation perspective as part of the program. And the assessment would be further, as is shown here on the screen, done at a basic level, where it would be like recognizing the need to apply the rational and the scientific principles, and explaining the same. And then we would be looking at the skill part of it, like I described earlier. So this type of an assessment would be part and parcel of the competency program. So the reference documents which were used, there were several different documents which were used as part of the MSc requirements. And it all began right from the GCP guideline, looking at the technical committee, looking at the E6R2 at that point in time when this was developed, the NDCT rules, the National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research, which involved human participants, and also this was not only the national guidelines, but also the competency assessment was adapted from the internationally recognized joint task force framework. And this is the framework which at least has a broad outline as to how these MSc competency requirements were developed. So with that, I would like to stop here and thank THSTI, Dr. Kurunkar, Dr. Sonia, for giving me this opportunity to speak today. And I would open it up for any kind of questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a really informative session, and we are really glad to have you on board. And we look forward to see such more sessions with you.
Sure.
So
Thanks so
next session, I think we are just 5 minutes early. So we will be starting the Q&A at 3:30. So ma'am, I request you to please be there at the Q&A session if there's any doubt related to you, and so I request you to be there. And now I invite Professor Debjani Roy. No, she's there. She's there. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Debjani Roy, and I've been associated. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We
Okay,
can
fine.
hear you.
Yeah,
Do you want
thank
me to
you.
share your presentation?
Okay, I would mind it. Just, yeah, that'd be nice. I've sent you the presentation. So if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
do it,
I'll
no
share.
problem.
I'll share. Okay.
So while Sonia is sharing this, I just wanted to say once again, a very good afternoon to all the participants. It's so nice to see so many people interested in this, and I hope I'll be able to put across also certain things and there would be a Q&A session. So I presume there would be a lot of questions and clarifications to be done, and I'm equally happy to be here and speak to all of you. And it's a great occasion because we developed this scheme since 2020. We started our journey in 2020 January, and developed this whole thing. And now we are here talking to you. So a very good afternoon.
Ma'am, I've shared. I've shared.
Can you do it full screen if you want, please?
Ma'am, it is already full screen on my end.
Okay, I don't see it, but should I start?
Maybe.
If
Just a
people are
minute. Just a
seeing it,
minute.
yeah.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
I can see it, but it's not full screen. If it's okay, fine.
Enable edit, then do full screen. Sonia, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dr. Sucheta.
Yeah. Thank you. Sonia, you'll have to enable editing and then do full screen. So, Dr. Seema, will you stay back for some time before you leave? So, if there are any questions for Dr. Seema, we can take them up.
Right. I will be there for another 5 minutes, Dr. Sucheta. Yeah.
Okay.
Sonia, are you able to do it?
So maybe meantime, Sonia can stop sharing and start sharing, or Dr. They
No,
can-
let her do it. If she has done it, let her do it. Just full screen,
Meantime,
that's
if
it.
you have any questions on MSc, maybe you can post it in the chat box and I will request Dr. Seema to take by the time this gets restored. Sonia, can you hear us? I think her machine got hanged or some internet issue.
Yes, ma'am, I
Let-
can hear you. I'm trying to solve it. Just a minute.
Okay.
Enable editing. And now I'm sharing it full screen. Just a minute.
Okay.
So I can find some international people also. Hasnain Sajjad is from Bhavalpur, Punjab,
Ma'am,
Pakistan.
is it visible now? Is it visible?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's full screen, right?
Yes.
Should I start? Or Sucheta, you have anything?
Yeah, please go ahead. I did not
Yeah,
see any questions.
Yeah, thank you. So this is today what I'm going to talk about is the certification process for the GCP professionals. This is basically, we have already the good clinical practice professional certification scheme was introduced. The overview was given by Sucheta, and Dr. Seema Pai has spoken about the minimum standard of competence, and even Dr. Y.K. Gupta spoke right in the beginning that this entire professional certification scheme for the good GCP people have been based, it is based on the ISO standard 17024. Based on this standard, the scheme was developed, the good clinical practice professional scheme. And within this scheme, there are different chapters. And the entire scheme is available on the website of THSTI, and people can download it and read through it. And for me, the task today is to talk about the certification process, how people, the GCP professionals who are interested in getting certified, what is the process? So that is what I'm going to talk about. Next slide, please. Yeah, the next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a disclaimer. Everybody's slide has that. And then as we said that we will do the Q&A session at the end. You can post your questions in this chat box. So now I continue. Now what happens is for any certification scheme, what is the present international scenario? Why I'm beginning with international scenario? Because we are dealing with an international standard, and what we have said is it is ISO 17024, and this standard basically deals with the certification of the persons or the personals, people like here in this case, it is the GCP people who are interested to get certified, but there are international standards which also deals with the products, the services, products in the sense electric bulbs, table fans, and all the things that we use, the services, for example, I'm giving very broad examples, like the health services, the processes and systems are the management systems of various organizations, and these are mostly made or it is needed for the grounds of health, safety, environment, national security, unfair trade practices. One of the hottest topics nowadays spoken about whenever we talk of standards is also a new thing, which is the sustainability. So all these are there standards which are developed, and it is internationally applicable, and for these things, that is products, services, processes, and systems. And Dr. Sucheta has already introduced that there are regulations, and there are regulations or there are voluntary systems. So in this, the regulations and the sectors, they are driven by the standards, which is defined in this case, the international scenario. And once a standard is developed, we need to see whether the criteria or whatever is described or whatever is required to follow prescribed, the requirements are being followed. So again, as I say, that whatever, even if it is a technical regulation or even if it is a voluntary standard, whatever it is, we need to check whether it is being followed. And to do that, we need to do some confirmatory assessments. And how are these assessments done? They can be either, it could be inspection, or it could be testing, or it could be certification. And today, in our case, we will talk about certification. That means whatever is described or whatever is required in the related standard, we have to check whether it is being complied with. And in this case, for today's scenario, we will be dealing with the certification of the persons, and that would be done through the confirmatory assessments. And why the confirmatory assessment is needed is, once the assessment is done, once a person is certified, then there is a confidence that the person has the knowledge and skill to perform what is needed for the person who is certified. Like, for example, in this case, it will be the GCP professionals. Once they are certified, people will have confidence that they have the required skills and knowledge. And as Dr. Sucheta had said, we also are certifying traditional healers who may not be very literate, but we have done the requirements, we have prescribed the requirements and do the assessments for them, and we certify them. So for any certification, we need to do confirmatory assessments, and that is based upon the requirements of the standard. And once it is done, once the assessment has taken place, once people have been certified, they get the international acceptability. That means they can go cross border, because that is the recognition for the skills and knowledge. But to do that, it has to be, the confirmatory assessment has to be done by not any organization, not the people who have written the scheme. For example, in this scenario, THSTI has written the scheme. So they are the owners of the scheme, but the owners of the scheme cannot go directly and go certify, but they have to bring in organizations who would be having the competence to do the certification and to certify the people, and those organizations will be accredited. Like Dr. Sucheta said earlier, that the Northeastern Christian University is the first PRCB of the scheme. They have been approved by THSTI. They have given a provisional approval to start off with the certification process. Therefore, THSTI directly as scheme owners cannot certify, but they have approved of the bodies who can do that, and that is accomplished through the process of accreditation. Similarly, training institutes will also come up, and they will also be given that approval, and finally they will be accredited. Can we go to the next slide, please? We can go on to the next slide. So as I said, in this case, the GCP personal certification scheme, it's the personal certification because we are certifying the people. And earlier it was always thought that whenever, generally, when we talk of certificate or certification, we always say, oh, person has to get this degree and that degree to get a certificate. But here we talk of certification. So there are little bit of difference, or we can say for the education-based certificates, people get, when they get a degree, they get a certificate. But here, when they are assessed for the minimum standards of their competence based on the knowledge and skill, they get certified. And therefore, that knowledge and skill in this case has to be demonstrated. Therefore, in this personal certification scheme, basically, we do not deal with the education-based system, but we deal with a knowledge and skill-based system, and that needs to be demonstrated. And that knowledge and skill can be acquired through any route. Either you are already a GCP person, trained person, or you gain experience through work, or other routes. But whatever it is, you have to demonstrate your skills and knowledge to get certified. And what is the process of getting certified? You have to be evaluated. And how it can be done? It can be done either through oral examination or written examination or practical examination or observations. Like, for example, in this case of GCP assessments, there is it will be a written examination. But in certain cases, like for yoga professionals, when they are getting certified, they have to, besides the knowledge part of it, they also appear for examinations, written part of it, but they have to demonstrate practically their asanas. Or there is certain mechanism, for example, traditional healers who cannot write properly or who could not express themselves properly. So therefore, the assessors or the evaluators go to the practice station and observe them. So the mechanism of evaluating and certifying them is based upon the domain where we are getting in for certifications. And once people are certified, it is not a one-time certificate. Like in education system, we get a master's degree or an MBBS degree and so forth and so on, a PhD or MPhil degree, and we are satisfied throughout life. Okay, we have got this certificate and we are done with. But in this case, you are certified for a time period. For example, you would be certified for 5 years, and within that 5 years, you will be under surveillance that you are performing whatever you're supposed to perform in the way the scheme or the criteria or the standard has prescribed. And it is the duty of the personal certification body who have certified you to do that surveillance. And once after the period of 5 years, if you feel you are benefited by getting certified, you can go for a recertification process. So it is basically everything is dependent upon your competence and your skill and your knowledge. So this is what is the crux or the essence of personal certification. Can we go on to the next slide, please? And as I said, GCPPCS is based on an international model. It is accepted internationally, and internationally this process is being followed. There has to be a scheme and there has to be a scheme owner. In this case, GCPPCS, the scheme owner is THSTI, and now I think they are also adding on bricks to it. I've missed that. I'm sorry for it. Next time we'll add that logo to this slide presentation. And therefore, this scheme owns a standard for certification and a logo. The logo of the scheme is on the right-hand side of the screen. And the scheme lays down uniform evaluation and certification process, because it will be the same across the country, and even if it goes international, the same process will be followed. It prescribes the requirements of the personal certification body. For example, we have one personal certification body at the moment with us, but whatever is the requirement of this personal certification body, it will be the same for all the personal certification bodies which will come up, and any other measure to promote certification and seek acceptability both in domestic and international markets. So this is the backbone of a scheme, what it needs and how it is following the international model. Can we go on to the next slide, please? A few terms I would like to just make you acquainted with. I'm not going into the details because just now I have used the word scheme owner. In this case, THSTI is the scheme owner. And what is the scheme? The certification scheme here is GCPPCS, which is Good Clinical Practice Professional Certification Scheme. So these are the words you'll be constantly being faced with. So I thought I will make you aware. And in the standard, that is 17024, these definitions are also given. Can we go on to the next slide? And what is the certification process? Means whenever we talk of certification process, the standard prescribes these terms. That means a certification scheme, here in this case is GCPPCS, will define what is the scope, what are the jobs and task description. It is all described. What are the required competence? It is all described in the scheme. Just now, Dr. Pai also spoke about the competence. She spoke about the minimum standard of competence. And what are the abilities? Means sometimes, not in this case, they also define what are the abilities, like your physical capabilities. Down I have written in note 1, that is vision, hearing, and mobility. What are the prerequisites? If at all, everything is written down, and what would be the code of conduct. Can we get on to the next one, please? So here now, the standard describes this glossary of the term certification process, which I am talking about. The standard talks about competence, which I've already explained to you. And while examining the competence, we will use the terms, we can use the terms examiners, invigilators. They are the people who would be taking part in the evaluation process, the competence of the people. I'm just introducing you the terms. I'm not explaining fully. Slowly you'll get to know. The next slide, please. And then I have already said what is the validity. And there should be a fairness, like each candidate should have equal opportunity. And the certificate, once it is given to you, the whole scoring or whatever it is, it should be reliable. Means it is, I said, the PRCBs can be anywhere in the country. It can be outside the country also. But they will follow the same procedure, the same requirements. As a result, when a certificate is given, people can rely, okay, they have gone through this process and they have got it, even if there are different examiners or different evaluators, but the whole process is uniform. So the uniformity and the reliability, the fairness is also a very strong point of the certification scheme. The next one. So now I come to the having introduced to you the concept, having introduced you the glossaries, the terms which we will be talking about again and again. Now I come when a person, when a GCP professional wants to take the cert or undergo assessment to get a certificate. So what is the process? First, people have to apply. The registration of the application will happen. The competence assessment will happen. Then the assessment method, which has been described, will happen. Then once the assessment is done, the decision on the certification has to be done by the personal certification body. There is a prescribed certificate format across all PRCBs, and this certificate format is given by the scheme owner. And I said there is a system of surveillance. Like once you're certified, the PRCB will find out how you're doing professionally after getting certified. And once your term of 5 years is over, you may have felt that it has helped you. You can come again voluntarily. These are all voluntary certification schemes. So you will come voluntary to get yourself recertified. And the PRCB will also see that if whatever after your certification, if you are performing, that is through surveillance, or even the PRCB can get some complaint against the certified person. And once they receive the complaint, they will look into the matter. And if it is a serious complaint, then your certification may be cancelled. But if not, they will look into it for the time period when they're looking into this complaint. Then the certificate may be suspended for the timing till it is again operative. So these are the processes which has to be followed by the PRCB in the process of certification. Can we go to the next slide, please? So how do you do the registration? Because this is the website. So GCP professionals need to apply to the TH, not directly to the THTI, but to the STI approved PRCBs. And the email ID and all details of the PRCB would be available on the THSTI website, and you can contact the PRCB if you are already aware of the existence of the PRCB. And any query from the applicant, the PRCB is to respond within 7 days of the receipt of query. Now, the scheme also gives in details the time frame, like there are certain circumstances that when we ask some organization, we don't get any response. We keep on waiting, but here everything has been written down. It is in black and white, and everybody has to follow that. The PRCB, once it is approved under the scheme, has to follow this mandate. The applications to be reviewed for its completeness, deficiencies in any form, and they have to inform the applicant within 7 days of receipt of the application. So you can see everything has been well described, well documented in the scheme. The PRCB follows it, and the applicant also knows how much time the person, he or she, has to wait to get a response. If not, then all applications found complete is to be registered within 7 days of receipt of applications, and they would be given some number. Their application, receipt of applications will be acknowledged, and records will be maintained by the PRCB. And if any applications are found violating the terms of conditions of GCPPCS, will not be processed and will be rejected, but they have to give a due notice within 15 days time frame to the applicant. It's not that it is incomplete or something has happened, they don't want to take in the application, they can't just sit over it. They have to inform the applicant as well. So everything is well described and everything is written down. So the applicant is also clear what is to be done and how long they have to wait and what is the next. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So now once everything has been found complete, they go ahead. But before that, request for certification from ex-applicants will be processed like a fresh application. Say suppose somebody has applied and for some reason the application was rejected, or the applicant did not appear or did not process or progress, then they have to reapply and it will be treated as a fresh applications. And the PRCB will reject or close applications under the following conditions. What are those conditions? That means if any deficiencies are observed, they will inform the applicant within 15 days, and the applicant is to give the information whatever is sought from the PRCB within 1 month. If not, the application will be rejected. If the applicant does not take assessment within 3 months of the registration of application, if there is any misuse of any certification mark or any malpractice, or if the applicant, even after the applicant has applied, doesn't wish to go forward, then they can withdraw. So these are the conditions in which the applications will be closed or rejected. The next slide, please. So how do we do the competence assessment? I think just before me, Dr. Pai has given details about it. So what is required is the criteria for competence of assessment to be as per requirement listed in the minimum standard of competence. Why do we say minimum standard of competence? Because here, anybody who thinks that they have the required knowledge and skill they can apply. They can be very, very competent and have lot of years of experience, but the scheme, what it has does, or any system, any standard or any certification scheme describes a minimum standard. What is the minimum requirement? So once during evaluation, the minimum standard of competence is met with, then the person is certified. And to do the minimum standard of competence assessment, there are these 6 domains. I'm not getting into the details. That has already been spoken about. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So what are the assessment methods? I have briefly spoken in my earlier slides. There are various methods to do the assessments, either oral or written or observation or practical. But for GCPPCS, the assessment will be done by MCQs for testing the knowledge and skill, and case studies in the 6 domains of competence. And Dr. Pai has already introduced that there are levels. There is a basic level and there is no negative marking for the basic level assessments, and the overall pass percentage for the successful candidates would be 70%. So this is the assessment method. Thank you. Next slide, please. So who would be assessing the candidates? People who have applied, they get their application is now accepted by the PRCB. The PRCB informs the candidates they are no more applicants. They've become candidates because they will be taking the certification process. And for that, they need the team, the examiners. So there should be minimum 2 examiners. And the examiner's competence is also documented in the scheme, and they should be should have postgraduate degree in medical sciences, oblique nursing, pharmaceuticals, biological sciences, biostatistics, clinical data management. Then they should have 5 years of work experience in clinical research after receiving the postgraduate degree. They should be GCP trained. And the team of personnel, the examiners and the question paper setters to have overall collective competence for all 6 domains. So there will be 2 sets of examiners. One, of course, who will be doing the markings or gradings, and there is also question paper setters. So for both of them, the competence has been defined and documented, and it will remain uniform across the country, across the world. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what is the assessment process? As I said, THSDI does not do the assessment and certifications directly. They have approved personal certification bodies to do it. So the PRCBs, after receiving the application, after completing the whole process of informing them, that acknowledging them, they inform the applicants who meet the eligibility criteria, the dates of assessment, 15 days prior to the examination date. They inform the examiners and the candidates' name, means the examiners who will be examining the candidates. The examiners know this is the requirement of the international standard, that both the examiners and the candidates are made aware that who will be examiners, who they will be examining, and the candidates who they will be, by whom they will be examined. And if there is any conflict of interest, say suppose an examiner has his own relative appearing in the examinations, therefore the examiner has to declare, no, I'm sorry, I cannot take this duty because my own known person is taking the examination, or my own student is taking the examination. But in that case, if there is a teacher, student, or trainee and examiner, say, for example, I have trained somebody and that trained person is appearing for the examination. So I should see, if I have become an examiner, there should be a 2 years minimum gap If I have trained somebody, I cannot examine that person within 2 years of the training period. So these are all given in the international standard 17024. It is not by whims and fancies of people that these have been written down. It's a requirement of the scheme, and then all these things will be, all the informations will be maintained in the website and the status as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? The next slide, please. Sonia, can we go to the next slide, please? We are stuck somewhere. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. I'm
Okay.
moving the slides. Is it
Okay.
like
No,
recertification?
We need that. Just I'll go quickly. I've just mentioned that because with this I end the assessment process, but I just need to tell them.
Ma'am, just a minute. I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
Assessment method,
Just
decision.
you continue. Whatever I have to skip, I'll skip.
Ma'am, recertification.
After assessment process, whichever slide is there, please put that.
Assessment process, decision on the certification.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Just continue the thing. I will skip if I want. Just still we have 4 minutes time.
Ma'am, Suchita ma'am, you are not audible.
Sharing and reshare, I think you have connectivity issue. If
Yes,
that is the case,
I think.
if that is the case, stop sharing, then Dr. Rai can share from her end.
Okay. Ma'am, I've stopped sharing on my end. I think there's some issue.
Yeah. Dr. Roy, can you share from your end?
Let me just see, because
Yeah.
there's some issue coming up. Even I was trying. Can you see my screen now?
Yes. Can you make it full screen?
Yeah, just a minute.
Sir, I think meeting room mein hu.
Oh, wait.
All the people who are in the webinar now, I'll request you to post your questions, and Sonia will pick up your questions and we'll try on our level best to address those. I have requested Professor Vaidya ji to join at 3:30. Probably we'll be able to.
Sucheta, can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am,
I
we
can see.
We can see your
No,
screen.
You have to
it's
make
the
full
first
screen.
slide.
Yeah, full screen.
No, my screen has got stuck. That's why.
Do I have the slide with me? Can I share? Anybody has shared? Then the shares.
Sonia can forward it to you because
I'm
I had sent
forwarding.
it to
I'm
Sonia.
forwarding. Wait a minute.
You can keep speaking, Dr. Roy. You do not require actually any slides.
No, for the other people, not for me.
Yeah. I'll
because
share by the time I
Yeah.
get it. But you can please continue because just I don't want to. I can see people from joining from Hasnan Sajjad has joined from.
Anyway, I'll continue. Can you see
Yeah,
decision on certification? I'm not making it full screen. Somewhere it is let me see. Now it has come, I think. It's slow here.
Ma'am, I forwarded your slides to Suchita ma'am.
Can you
can
see
help.
this?
But I can see your slides moving here.
Yeah. So now there's a decision of the certification. The certificate. It will have the name of the certified person. It will have an unique identification code, the name of the certification body, a reference to the certification scheme standard, including issue date, the scope of certification and the effective date of certification and the expiry date. The certificate format will be approved by the scheme owner. So the PRCBs cannot develop their own things because it has to be uniform, and the effective date for the certification will not be before the date of any means it has to complete that 5-year circle, and then if somebody wants to go for recertification, then there is a method. I've already spoken. There's a surveillance there, which was actually the responsibility of the personal certification body. I've already spoken about the recertification or the renewal of the certificate. And basically in the certification process, the PRCB takes cognizance of the reports of the surveillance assessments, and if they have taken all the precautions, and then it happens. And I have already spoken about the suspension of the certification, how and when it can happen. And again, I've already spoken about the cancellation of the certification, under what conditions it can take place. And there is a certification fee, which of course the PRCB decides. It is not the scheme owners, and it is also publicly displayed on the website. So everything is open and people can follow that. And there is a section on the website of the PRCB for any complaints. Complaints can come in for any people or for appeals. Appeals are mostly against decisions which is taken during the certifications. And this is what is actually the entire certification process is about for the certification of the GCP professionals. Thank you so much. There were some disruptions. I apologize for that, but we have completed on time. It's 3:31. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful session. Thank you, thank you. I request you to be here only for the Q&A.
Yeah.
And I request Dr. Y.K. Gupta and Dr. Anil Johari, Shri Anil Johari ji, who is the chairman of steering committee, GCPPCS, and he was the former CEO of NABCB. So far the questions are, like we have only 4 to 5 questions. I request all to write your queries, all your questions. If you have anything related to GCP, PCS program, regarding PRCBs, regarding TIs, please write to us. So as of now, these 4 questions are there. I'm putting on the slide. So this was the question: how long is this certificate valid and what is the fee for us? Ma'am, your voice is not audible here.
The idea if Dr. Shalom can answer the first question, or maybe Dr. Debjani can answer.
Yeah.
Is Salome there? Is she answering?
She's there. Thank you,
There,
Shalom,
ma'am.
for being here.
Shalom, are you here?
She was there. I don't know whether she has.
Maybe some network issue, maybe.
Telling, please unmute me.
Yeah.
THSTI, please could you unmute Dr. Shalomi? I do not know. Yes,
I'm looking for her. Wait. So, I am unmuting her. Just a minute. Hello, Dr. Edsalom.
Hello, everyone. Yes,
Hi,
with
she
regard
has
to the
joined.
first, okay. I hope I'm audible.
Hi, Salom. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, so the certificate is valid for 5 years, and with regard to the fee, we will be discussing. We have fixed the fee as 20,000, but we are working it out. So we will be discussing this with CDC in the following week. So after that, we'll update you on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is it possible to get the certificate for online training center as well?
Jauriji, would you like to take this, or Dr. Devjani, would you like to take this online mode?
We have a program for training centers, isn't it? So training centers can apply to us and can get approval from PHSTI directly.
But I think they want to speak about the TIs doing this GCP training online. Are you intending this, or are you telling that you want
I think we
GCPPCS
have allowed
certificate?
online training. In our system, we have allowed online training.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Sonia, next
They
time
should
if you
look
can
at
put
the
name of the person.
criteria for training institution, and they should look at the process for a training institution on our website. Sonia, can you give the link to the website, link to the scheme documents here in the chat box?
Yes, sir.
And next time, Sonia, you can put the name of the person also who has asked the question, probably if possible. Otherwise,
Yeah, ma'am. Today also I put that, like Sudha and Anurag. These are the two people
okay.
who asked questions. So this is the slide, Anil sir. This is the slide which shows about the PRCB, and this is the email gcppcs.cdsa@thhsti.res.in, which you can write to us if you have any query, and if you want any personal certification, if you want to be our PRCB and TI. There's a CDSA link given, which has GCPPCS page link, and the next link is of NICU, which is our PRCB. Hello, sir.
Dr. Sudha, can you tell which site is showing you 404 error? You can let us know. GCPPCS site is showing you. Okay. We'll just have a look at the backend. Please, thank you so much for informing us. We will
Thank you.
surely restore this GCPPCS.
One more question is from Ramakrishnan Sitaraman. Where can an individual researcher obtain training in GCP?
Yeah. Which one? Third one? No. Is it the third question?
No.
No, ma'am. It's in the comment box. Just now we have received it.
Okay. Can we go to the third question, Sonia,
Yes,
and then
yes.
fourth, and then come there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I could see Professor Y.K. Gupta ji has joined. I think he can be the best.
The third question is GCP by Cidisco is not updated and still speaks on schedule Y. What is the idea of training participants with outdated standards? Is there a rationale, as NDCT seems more reasonable along with GCP? I say GCP.
So I will request Professor Y.K. Gupta ji, sir, to take the question number 3.
I'll just read because
yes,
GCP CDSA is not updated and still speaks of Schedule Y. That is unfortunate. And but I am very happy that you have pointed out this. That means you are vigilant, and we will certainly ask DCGI to update it. And what is GCP CDSA is not? Where is it gone? Is there a rationale? As NDCT seems more reasonable than along with ICPs. See, there are two important things. One is, of course, this correction has to be done. There's nothing like Schedule Y exists today. It is all replaced by NDCT 2019.
Yes.
However, the Schedule Y only remains for veterinary drugs. Even the GCP is now under revision, process of revision, and that will be brought out maybe by next 1.5 years. Knowing the ICH GCP is important, but knowing the difference, there might be subtle difference at some places, but otherwise this is being harmonized. So that is the status now. And that is the purpose of this GCP CCP, is that we will see that whether the course clearly explains the difference in ICH GCP and Indian GCP and the similarity between these things, so that there is a clarity in the person who gets training.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
There's the next question. Sir, would you like to take the question? Question number 4. Currently, we are having NIDA clinical trial network certification. Is it valid? Can we get GCPPCS based on it? It's a very interesting question. Sir, would you like to take this?
Can you read it again, because I can't see it here?
Yeah, sir. I will read it, sir. Currently, we are having NIDA clinical trial network certification. Is it valid? Can we get GCPPCS based on it? So
No.
NIDA, yeah.
No, there may be other network associations and professional bodies which join together, and then they say that this certification is valid. This accreditation is not having any partnership, mutual recognition with any other. Therefore, this is standalone, and this is only the Government of India recognized accreditation process.
Sir, I also want to add that the NIDA clinical trial certificate program of GCP does not cover the National Ethical Guidelines 2017 or by ICMR. It also doesn't cover the GCP by CDSCO, which is written and mentioned in the NDCT rules, page number 148 to 151, which mentions the GCP by the Drugs Technical Advisory Group by CDSCO 2001. So that is NIDA is meant for not for India. It might be meant for US or global, but this is not meant for us at present.
Very correct, Suchita. You have given very clarity on this.
Thank you so much, sir. So can we get GCPPCS based on it? My request is that please visit the GCPPCS website. We will see if there is a technical error in the website. There is a mention of minimum standard of competence. Professor Y.K. Gupta heads the technical advisory committee of that as a chairperson. And if you have any comments, you can write about the GCPPCS minimum standard of competence update. And once you go through it, if you are confident enough with the syllabus, please take the competency assessment exam from ECU, and that's it. Any other question for Professor Y.K. Gupta ji and Shri Anil Johri ji, because they are both here with us and both are chairpersons of both very two important committees. So if you want to ask a question, this might be a golden chance to get it clarified. So
Ma'am, can you, I've updated the questions here.
Yeah.
So this is the this is the 5th question. Examination for personal certification is online or offline?
Salome can answer that. It's I think online can
yes.
The examination will be okay. Sorry. The examination will be conducted online.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shalome. This is a very big, comfort for people who would like to take the exam.
Thank you so much. Next question is, where can an individual researcher obtain training in GCP?
Sir, a very interesting question. Professor Y.K. Gupta, sir, do you want to answer this question?
I think you answer, and Dr. Johri, then I may also comment. But my point is that irrespective of from where you get the competence from the training, but if you have got the competence which is acceptable by this board, then it should be eligible. We don't say that you get competence from which place. We will give certification to those organizations which give training. That is one thing. We give also certification to those professionals who have obtained training from anywhere, but they are competent irrespective of the training source. That is what my understanding. But I will like to be corrected by Mr. Johri Saab and Suchita.
Thank you so much.
You are correct, Dr. Gupta. You are correct, Dr. Gupta. We have not prescribed any route for acquiring the competence. You can acquire competence from any route you wish, and you can come up and go through the personal certification process of an examination. And if you qualify, you will be certified.
Thank you, Dr. Jari Saab.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now, the next question would be, we are trained in basic course in biomedical research conducted by NPTEL, SWAYAM government portal. Should it not suffix maybe?
See, we have already said this is a voluntary scheme. If you think with the training that you already have, your work is, your purpose is served, it's fine with us. If you think that having a certification under CDSS scheme will bring you an
Yeah.
additional benefit or additional credential, please go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So the next three questions are from YouTube Live. How this is different from NIDA GCP certificate? Dr. Sucheta has already answered this question.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yes.
we don't need to answer this again. Now, Dr. Dhirender has asked, what is the duration of the certification course? I think
There is
Salome
no
answered.
course in this. This personal certification is
Yeah.
defining the competence. You can go through an exam
Exactly.
and you can get certified. But if you are a training organization, we have standardized the training course. I think the training course is 2 days. We have standardized. So if you are a training organization and if you want to get approval from Teach STI, then you will have to deliver a standardized model.
Yes, sir. The next question is by Shalini. How many attempts for passing the certificate for the examination in one-time registration?
No, there's no bar on appearing again and again, but you probably you will pay fee each time you appear again.
Yes, every time there will be a new registration.
Yeah.
Yes, which Dr. Devjani has already covered in her presentations. Any more questions? We welcome here all the questions. We still have time to answer your questions. We still have 15 minutes. So let me check YouTube also, sir, if there's any query. Somebody is asking if there is any guide available in dissertation for public health.
That
What's
is
the
not
question?
our domain area in GCPPCS.
Yes, this is like a.
What's the question?
They are in a search of a guide in their public health dissertation.
Public health is an entirely different area, no?
Yeah, completely. And one more thing is there, how to improve qualitative clinical practice.
That
It
is
was asked
also
by
not in
Dr.
the scope of
Sagar on
GCPPCS.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Sucheta, may I leave now?
Yes, sir. Thank you
Yes,
so
sir,
much
yes,
for
sir.
joining
I'm in the
in.
middle of a meeting in the ministry.
Yeah, I am
But
totally
thank you,
understand.
sir. Thank you. It
Thank
was
you,
very
sir.
pleasure. And
Thank you,
Jari
sir.
Saab is there. You are here. So
No,
if
sir,
there is any question which they want me to ask,
Yes.
maybe I can communicate through email.
Yes, sir.
So thank
Thank
you,
you
Sure.
so much.
Jari Saab. Namaskar.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Dr. Pankaj Srivastava. Is there any study material specific for certificate except ICS, GCP and NDCT rules?
So, Dr.
Scheme is
Pankaj,
based on these two documents only. So if you study these two documents, you should be good for it.
Yeah.
I will request, I would like to add something. May I?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
ma'am.
Yeah, Joriji, I was thinking that it is very good idea for anybody who is an aspirant to take GCPPCS to go through the minimum standard of competence in detail. The
Yes.
minimum standard of competence will give them an idea about what the competency assessment is based on.
Yes.
It's just like when we take the NEET entrance exam, we know the NEET syllabus, and the NEET syllabus is nothing but our minimum standard of competence. So from there, you will know that you have to study the CDSU GCP, the ICH GCP, the NDCT rules, our
Yes.
national ethical guidelines and everything. And of course, your skill and knowledge through your practice or your engagement as a clinical researcher or a trialist. Thank you.
Mr. Chinmay Shah has asked, but can we have the fee details?
Dr. Salome, please tell them the fee. Please go ahead and finalize your fee. Tell them the fee.
She actually, Dr. Shalom has already addressed Joriji. She was very
Yes,
kind
she has
enough to
already
tell.
answered this question.
Sonia, will you repeat the answer or shall I? Shalomi, can you hear? Would you like to re-repeat it?
Initially, the fee was fixed for 20,000 per application, but we will be revising it. Based on the feedback that we have received, we will be revising the fees. So we have set a meeting with CDSC next week. So hopefully we'll be able to come to a decision on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was valid for 5
Thank
years.
you.
The 20,000 fee was valid for 5 years.
And ladies and gentlemen, the PRCB also has to be self-sustainable, and we will take all care to ensure that the fee is not exorbitant and it is affordable, provided we are able to have numbers. If there are numbers, I think we should be able to make it. And that's why
Yes,
NICU has been taking a lot of efforts, because they have been doing for traditional healers, where affordability is a very great issue. So I am sure that if NICU cannot do it, others cannot do it. Thank you so much. Just have patience. We'll come back to you.
So next question is by Sonia Pareria. Can we assess you all as resource persons for lectures on ethics?
I am not able to understand. Jorichi, are you able to understand anything out of that? That you want us to help in some
Surely,
way?
if you invite Dr. Sucheta for a lecture, she's free to give a lecture. There's no problem.
Yeah, or anyone about
Or any of the resource who's in that area.
we will have to take our approvals from our respected officers, but I think you can invite any of
Yeah.
them.
Giving a
involved.
lecture is not never an issue.
Any questions? We are on time. I think before the flight arrival time, the flight arrives, we all
Yeah.
are happy. Similar, I think, is the webinar. We have been on time. If there are more questions, we would love to take it. Are there any questions from the YouTube live?
Ma'am, these were the all questions.
Yes, Dr.
Last question
Vaishali,
is
we are
very-
aware about.
Had previously joined. Yeah. No, ma'am, no more questions as of now.
Yeah, Sudha, you would like to ask any question? Dr. Sudha has raised her hand. Yeah, please.
Maybe she's writing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, you have to unmute. IT, could you please unmute?
Let me see.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Sucheta. This is such a wonderful initiative. First of all, I would like to congratulate you people to bringing this. I remember 5 years ago you had this thought, but then bringing it into reality, that's a wonderful thing. Thank you so much for that. And I was just wondering, the training centers which are certified by through this process, will they be able to issue the certificates also, whoever they train, according to this, GCPPCS will be issuing the certificate?
Let me, Dr. Sudha and all, let me clarify something. Maybe I was not very clear in my presentation. I should have been. There is two components for this. Let me give you an example which can be very easily understood is about giving, can I share my screen once again just quickly? Like when we take our entrance examinations, we take tuitions from anybody, or we can study at home also. So this one is exactly like that. So if you are thinking that the training institutes will give you certificate, no. There are two modalities. I'll just come to this slide. If you are thinking that you are already trained in GCP, then you can directly go to NECU, which is the personal certification body here, and Dr. Shalome is representing that. And they are the ones where you have to give this competency assessment, and they will issue the GCPPCS certificate. Now, if you're thinking that somebody who would like to be trained, like going to tuition to take NEET training so that they can apply and appear for NEET entrance examination, like any training centers, these are training institutions. Now, training institutions can be anywhere, but there are some training institutions which will be CDSA approved, who will be following the entire curriculum, which is GCPPCS, compliance with the GCPPCS requirements. So if you go to that, then you can get training which will make you a little bit more ready for taking the GCP professional certification scheme competency assessment. I hope I was able to make you clear. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sue. I can see your hand is
Ma'am,
raised.
one more question is
more
there.
questions? Yeah.
For conducting regulatory clinical trials, is this certification mandatory for the site personals?
I think
No.
Johari already
No,
mentioned.
the certification is voluntary. We have
It is
always said
voluntary,
this is a
yeah.
voluntary certification scheme. If you think this enhances your credentials, please go ahead and get this certification. It's not prescribed to be mandatory anywhere as of now.
Yeah. Yes, but anyone who's working in the industry in the area of clinical trials, it is beneficial for them.
Yes.
And it is totally voluntary. If they want to upskill themselves, if they want to upgrade themselves, they can pursue it.
Any
Hello, hello,
Any
hello.
more questions?
Yeah. Ma'am, okay.
Yes, it includes BA and BE studies also, Dr. Sheila. Because BA, BE studies are also covered by NDCT rules. So it also includes.
Okay, so I think we should wind up. We are just on time. One more person has asked, dear ma'am, the fee should be minimal possible. 20,000 is too much. Yes, we are working on that. We will come up with something with a new number in the next week possibly. So please give us time for that, and we are possibly working on it, and we will come up with a new number.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Salome, you please go ahead and finalize the fee and announce it.
Yeah, we are having a planning of meeting next week. Jyoti, we
You
already
don't need a
discussed.
meeting,
Yes,
Sucheta. Let
yes.
them decide on fee.
Yes.
Yes. And one more person is asking that can we have it on Swayam? I think
On SWAM, we run a course, which is current regulatory requirements for conducting clinical trials in India. It is not, that course will just help you to become better in NDCT rules, which is one of the syllabus of GCPPCS. You cannot have it on SWAM. SWAM course will help you to get better.
yes.
You undergo the SWAM course and then go for the certification.
Yeah. But that is not a full proof because it is not only NDCT rules, it has a lot of other components. I will request all of you again the same questions that please visit the minimum standard of competence. It is the syllabus of that, and this one is the basic version. So please read, and if you have any comments, please feel free to ask us. You can always mail us at gcppcs.cds@thsti.rs.
Yes. I think we have it all. As we should call it a day. I think no more questions as of now, and there are repeat questions which we don't need to answer. And on my end, I just want to thank everyone for all the participants. I know there was a struggle initial because we are only allowed with 100 participants. Because this is the free webinar we are doing to create the awareness about our program, we have to bear with it, and with our minimum facilities which we have. And but YouTube is our escape here. So kindly, when you feel something is going wrong with it, you can join it on YouTube. And some questions are for certifications. I assure you that you will get it on time because we were like very busy with the upcoming webinar. We have to plan other things also, but your certificates are safe with me. I'll share it with you. So please be, please be kind to us also. We will share it soon, and I'll be sharing feedback to you in a day or two. So after that, we maintain a database for the feedback also. Please make sure that you fill in the feedback form also very seriously, because this helps us in improving ourselves also. This webinar series also needs improvements. So feedback is required. It is our requirement from your side. So please fill in the feedback so that we can have the database with us, and I assure you that you will get the certifications after filling the feedbacks. So I'll not be sharing now only. I'll be sharing in a day or two. So that's a special announcement I'm making here, so that no panic is there, no hurry is there. Now I would like to wind up the webinar here. My special thanks to Professor Y.K. Gupta for the welcome regards, for Shri Anil Jari ji for the Q&A, and special thanks to Dr. Salom, who was ready to help us on the last minute, and we have only one PRCB as of now. So thank you so much, Dr. Salom, and special thanks to Dr. Sucheta. She's not well, but she handled it like very pro, and Dr. Seema Pai, who was our, a very informative replacement for the, MSc, minimum standard of competence, because it's a different thing altogether. Nobody can take it overnight, and it needs it needs expertise. And Professor Devjani Roy, who's always there to help us every time in all the webinars. We will be doing all such webinars in every month. So we will be welcoming questions in all the webinars. They will be free. And the only problem we'll be having is Zoom link with 100 participants. So kindly bear with us. Thank you all. Thank you all for being the wonderful audience and for the informative webinar we had today.
Thank you so much from all of us. Namaskar and Jai Hind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Joining. Without you, this wasn't possible. Thank you.